This episode is sponsored by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make your next move with Squarespace. If you want to become a full-time portrait photographer, one of the jobs that you can pick up in the quiet months is corporate headshot photography. Now, it's not the most glamorous sort of photography. I mean, normally when I do a headshot or portrait session, I have at least an hour with one person where they can get comfortable. I've got time to coach them towards a good look and feeling more comfortable, and I can do different things with lights. They can change outfits and hairstyles and the rest of it, and we can be guaranteed we're going to get something great by the end of it. But in corporate headshot photography, sometimes I've had to get through 70 people in 2 hours. There just isn't the time for that. So I've come up with a bit of a system that works for me where I can bring people in, shoot with them, and get them out the room and get good shots consistently throughout a shoot, all in 90 seconds to 2 minutes per person. It's not the only way to do things. I'm sure you have different techniques that you use, but hopefully looking at the way I do stuff, there might be some tips in what I do that you can add to your own way of doing things, and it can lift your game as well. The whole thing with corporate headshot photography is the balance between being very, very efficient, but also keeping the consistency of your shots up. So let me show you the setup. So let me talk you through the setup. We'll start with this background light here, which is facing onto the white paper. The reason I'm going to show you white paper is because in my experience it's just the most common background that most corporates want. They do clean white websites. It just works with most of the stuff they do. But it's a great idea to ask the company before you agree to do headshots what kind of background they want. I've had some companies want gray and some want black and some want the color of the company. So just work with them and find out what they want. But this is the most popular solution I've found, plus it's the most tricky because you've got to balance exposure on that background light as well. So this light here is going to sit behind the subject. So if I'm the subject here, you can see it's over my shoulder and it's facing up onto that paper, and that's going to provide that pop of white in the background. I'm using a white paper roll just because I hired a studio space to show you this stuff today, but other options are if they have a pure white clean wall in the office that's big enough, you might be able to get away with using the wall in a pinch. Otherwise, I've got a backdrop which is like a 1.5 by 2 meter, which you can flip out and hang on a stand. I've used that before. I've often got companies to buy their own paper rolls. If I shoot with them regularly, they keep them in the storeroom and I just pull it out every time I get there, and it saves me having to try and find a way to get that in a taxi because it's quite big. And the other option is you could actually put up a big softbox behind the subject and have them stand in front of a big octa or a big square softbox or something, and that gives you your solid white background. But we'll get to the exposure in a minute. My key light, which is here, is off 45 degrees, 45 above to the left, and we'll tweak that a little bit later. I'll show you how. This light is just a Bowen's, I think it's a 400 is what I'm using. They've gone out of business. There's loads of similar lights like this, just look it up online. And I'm using a soft lighter. It's a 1 meter soft lighter because it's a really versatile, useful modifier. It's so easy to pack away. It's very light and they're super cheap if anything goes wrong with them as well. And it gives a nice softbox style light. So if I move around here, you can see what it is it's just an umbrella that the light shoots into and then comes back out through this diffusion material. And if I light myself here, you can see that's giving me quite a nice side light on the face. I've then got a reflector sitting off to my right here, which is going to be used because when this pop of light is coming here, the shadows on this side of the face might be too dark. All I need to do is bring this reflector in closer or further away to fill a little bit on the side. And then the last light is this little light off in the corner, which is another Bowen's 400, which I've got going through a Pixar Pro strip box, okay? Strip box because it's going to give me a nice even distribution all along the back of my head, down my shoulders and my back, not that I'm shooting that far down. And the grid because it's going to keep the light channeled this way and not flare into the lens, and I've got a sheet of diffusion in there, so it's softening it up as well. So that's my basic setup with just my key light here, with a soft lighter, my reflector which I can bring in closer to fill the shadows on this side, my strip box back for a little bit of a rim light, and one light behind me which is going to pop on that white background and blow it to white. So in terms of camera, I'm on my 5D Mark II Canon, which is a full-frame DSLR with the 85mm f1.4 prime on it. 85 is a great focal length for portraits on full frame because it compresses the background, gives you less to deal with, and also makes sure there's no distortion in the face. And I already know exactly what my settings need to be, and I'll give you those in a second. This on the top here is a little trigger. You get loads of different sorts of these. This is a little one by Calumet. It's a fairly generic one. And for those of you who are terrified by flash, it's very, very simple. This trigger talks to the trigger there, which is attached to that backlight, which is lighting up the background, because it's going to be the brightest light in the room. So this tells that to fire when I hit the button. And then because the other two lights are set so that when they see a flash in the room, they also fire. When this triggers that, these two fire at the same time because they see that flash. Now I already know what my settings need to be. I am on ISO 100, no choice. I want the image as clean as possible, so keep my ISO as low as possible. That's already set. I know I want to be at f4 at 85mm because the whole face will be in focus, but by the back of the head it's going to start to go soft, which I quite like the look of. I know there are loads of people who won't like that. You'll want to shoot deep and have everything sharp. That's absolutely fine. If a client asks me for that, that's the way I'd shoot it. But if it's left to me, I kind of like the slightly shallower depth of field. No, it's not very shallow, it's just a little bit. And I'm on 1/125th of a second in terms of my shutter speed, and I don't have an option for that because if I'm hand holding, I want to make sure that the shutter speed is fast enough that I don't get any shake. And the basic rule is that you should always be shooting 1/, whatever your focal length is, or faster. So with an 85mm, I should be 1/185th of a second or faster than that. I've got a lot of latitude here. I've actually got image stabilization on this lens, plus with strobe, it's very, very forgiving. But just to make sure the image is sharp, that's where I want to sit. But I can't go faster than 1/125th of a second either, because I know this camera, and over 1/60th of a second, the camera starts to lose flash sync. And if you want to Google that, you can have a look. It's a very technical thing about how front and rear curtains work when the shutter opens, and whether that's synced with how fast the light is being delivered by the flash. But just to give you an example, if I take a photograph of this light here at the back at the settings that I've just mentioned to you, it's going to be overexposed at this point, but just to show you what's happening, you can see light through the whole image. But if I take my shutter speed up to 400th of a second and take the same photo again, you can see on the image it's starting to fill up with black from the bottom and going up. If I go to 1/800th of a second, the whole screen is almost full up with black now. So that is flash sync. I need to, for this camera, stay at 1/125th of a second to be safe. 1/160 I found on this camera, it just starts to get slightly dark at the bottom, a little bit of fringing. I know that 1/125 is going to be safe. So if I have my settings in the camera the way that I need them, and I know I can't change them, I'm going to set my light so that it complements and exposes correctly for those settings. But I also need another way to be able to dial the exposure down if I need to. Someone might come in with a very bright top, and the next person might come with a very dark top, and I need to balance the exposure to make sure that there's consistency throughout. So I need a fourth way to play with exposure, and I use a variable ND filter. And this will screw on the front of the lens, and basically I can use it to start to cut some of the light out. You can see if you twist it, can you see that? It cuts the light out. It doesn't change the color or mess with anything. It's not like sunglasses. It's proper ND filter glass, which means that it's just stopping down the light. And by twisting it, I can pull the light back or push it forward again, depending on where it needs to be, without messing with the settings that I know I need to keep. So all the lights are in place, the settings are in the camera. I know I'm not changing them. It's just going to be those little ND filter tweaks just to get the light where I need it to be. Now I need to set the lights so that they're balanced with each other and with the settings I've got. So I've got Andre. Normally if I'm doing a big shoot, I have someone along to help me out. It just helps so much having somebody here so you can use them to sort of set the lights instead of making the poor first person who comes in be the person who has to stand through all this stuff while you're sort of dialing everything in. Andre's a great photographer as well. I'll stick his link below and you can check out his stuff. So he's going to stand there and make faces, and I'm just going to get these lights going. So what I probably want to do first is actually turn everything off except this background light. So the front two lights are off. And I'm just going to take a shot with that background light, and I want to see basically a clean silhouette as far as possible. So taking a test shot, and I have got a clean silhouette on that, but it's too dark. I need these blinking black highlights, and I've got them set up on my camera to fill all the way around. So I need to turn this background light up to, let me guess, around, I'm going to take it quite high there to just offer full power, and I'm going to test again. And okay, that's good. There is a clean silhouette all the way around. I'm a little worried. What happens is if you push the light too hard, you don't get as clean an edge because the light actually starts to come and wrap back around and you lose your clean edge. So I'm going to back this off just a touch, and just to get that clean line on the silhouette. So probably about a half. Okay. And one more. Okay. And that looks good to me. So I've got a nice clean silhouette, nice hard line all the way around. So I'm going to set my key light next. So turn my key light on. And let's just take a shot. I don't even know what the setting is. Let's just see where it's at, and I can dial it in from there. I'm not a light meter guy, as you can tell. So that is looking okay. It's just too hot on the side of his face. So I need to back this light down a little bit. I'm going to take it down to, well, this is, you know, between 1 and 6 is sort of what Bowen's gives you as a scale. So that's back down from 5 to 4. And that now is looking good. I like that. That exposure's good. On the left-hand side of the face, it's starting to look a little bit shadowy. So I can bring in my reflector now. And basically what I need is the light to be bouncing off this and just filling a little bit on that side of the face. Can you kind of see, is that a good angle from where you are? That light kind of bouncing off, turn a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Okay, good. So that should give me now just a little bit of fill on that opposite side. Okay, that's great. I like that. It's not too much. I still want shape. I don't want to fill the whole face. I still want the shape, but it is just filling in a bit of those shadows, and I could bring it even closer if I wanted to fill them a bit more. Last light I can put on is this backlight, and let's turn this on. It's at the moment, it's about 3. Let's just guess and see how we do with 3, see where it is. And all this is going to do is just give a little separation on the opposite side to the key light. So that's the key light, 180 degrees right the way across is that rim light just on that back side for the hair there on the chin and the jawline. So that will give me just a nice little highlight on the opposite side, and I like it quite subtle. So we've got a nice kind of Rembrandt feel, which works really well, especially for guys, and you've got a nice little kicker light on the back. What I'm going to get Andre to do now is just tape by your feet there, just tape a line across, just so people can stand behind that tape. Okay, so this is just going to mark the point exactly where they need to be standing. It's easy when people walk into the room. I don't have to take time, just go stand behind that tape. It's very, very easy to do. So just shuffle a little bit this way for me. Not too much, come back a bit, back a bit, back a bit, back a bit, back a bit. That's perfect, right there's good. Okay, now, this is a little trick I use to get different sorts of lighting for different people without having to move lights around. So just tape, just by your left foot there, just on the inside of your left foot there, just put a little bit of tape facing sort of towards the backdrop there. Yeah, that's great. Okay, good. So I've got him to put a little line on the floor, and that's where I'm going to position people if I want this Rembrandt look. But sometimes that kind of shadowy look on the one side doesn't suit some people. I know women especially don't really like it. They like a more flattering sort of overhead light. So I'm going to get you shuffled this way a little bit, just a little bit. That's great. And now the pole is going to come into play here, just a little bit back. That's good, right there. But obviously it's very, very easy to take out and post. Okay, that's good. And just a mark just almost right by the end of that piece of tape there. And because I've got these 2 marks, I know that when people come in, I can shuffle guys a little bit more this way if I want to give a bit more mood to the face, or I can take people a little bit more this way if I want to sort of have a nice, more flattering overhead light. And some people suit different sorts of lights. But in the middle of a shoot, I can't go rearranging lights for different sorts of people. And this is a way, just with a little move, can change the lighting quite dramatically. A good little test to do before you start shooting, just to make sure that none of this ambient light is actually getting in on the shot, is if you just take the trigger off the camera. So now you're not triggering the lights anymore, and just take a normal shot. The screen should be entirely black. because without these lights, that means that none of these lights are actually affecting the shot. At these settings, they're not bright enough to affect the exposure at all. So we are only dealing with strobe. So it's a good thing to know that you're not mixing ambient and strobe, and you're not, because the lights can change with ambient, with stuff coming through windows. It's a great thing to check. The only other thing to do before we start shooting is just to get a gray card shot. I'll do an editing video as well, so showing you how I process through these images, but having this gray card shot really helps. The camera is already set on the correct white balance, so it's not that much of a problem, but just to be super safe and to fine tune that last little bit, I'm just going to get Andre to hold that gray card in front of his face. Take a shot, so I've got that there. So now I've got that gray card shot, I know I can get the correct white balance at the end. The only other things to say is I'm not shooting portrait, I'm shooting landscape, and the reason for that is that I want to use all the real estate top to bottom to fill the center, but I also want all the shoulders in the shot at all times. And the reason for that is I want 3 clean edges on my shot, because when I've blown everything to white, designers love that. It means they can extend these images any way they want. They could make banners out of them or anything else, as long as they've got 3 clean edges and I'm not cutting off shoulders at any point. So that's how I'm choosing to compose. And for focusing, I'm center focus and recomposing, and that means I've turned all the focus sensors off on the camera and just got the center one working. And basically what I'll do is I'll focus on the nearest eye to camera and half press, and then I recompose the shot where I want it to be and take the shot. So that's taking that center point, putting it on that nearest eye, half pressing to get it to focus, recomposing the shot, and then taking the shot the rest of the way.
When someone walks in the room, I want to get them positioned as quickly as possible, get them to loosen up and just relax.
Cool, go for it. So you're just going to hop in just behind the blue line there, and you're going to face this way, face towards me.
You're going to direct people's body position a lot in 2 minutes, and I found the easiest way to do this is to get them to mirror your movements.
Good, all right, so it's probably easiest just if you're going to mirror me. So you're just going to take a little shuffle backwards. That's great, toes behind the line, that's cool. And follow me, you're just going to shuffle a little touch this way. That's great, perfect where you are.
In terms of body position, I want to make sure they have a straight spine, their shoulders are level and flat, that their right foot is slightly forward so their body is pivoted just towards the light a little bit, and the front shoulder is just dipped down a touch.
So stand up like whole body straight, like knees straight, everything, so just straighten that. Okay, now you're going to take a little turn this way towards the light, okay, and you're going to use this leg to lean on, okay, so you're going to kind of lean a little bit forward on that leg. Do you like that leg better? Yeah, okay. Okay, and you're just going to lean into the shot a little bit. So it's just about like lengthening your neck a little bit. So don't everyone tilts down when you tell them to do that. So all you're going to do is just drop this front shoulder and just pull the head forward. So as if there's like a string on the forehead. So not too much, back it up. I'm scared. That's good. That's great. Good. Exactly where you are. Okay.
In terms of head position, I'm watching the chin and making sure it's not pointed towards the floor, pointed up at the ceiling, that the eye level is straight to camera and that their head is level and straight.
Chin up just a touch like you did there. That's great. Stay there. And down a little hair. That's perfect. Great. All right, good.
You will get some people who blink a lot, either naturally or because they're anticipating the shot when they hear the focus beep. What I do is get them to set the position, close their eyes, and count down from 3, 2, 1, and as they open their eyes, I wait for their eyes to go from wide when they first open them to just settled, and I snap that moment.
Okay, so I'm getting a lot with you blinking, so what we're going to do, stay where you were, you good? I'm going to get you to close your eyes. I'm going to count 3, 2, 1, and you're going to open them and look straight into the lens, okay? So keep that expression in your mind. If you want something slightly smiley, have that expression ready to go. Just open your eyes, look straight in the lens. Okay, close your eyes, and 3, 2, 1. That's great. And again, close your eyes. 3, 2, 1. That's great.
Unless the company is specified, I encourage people to give me a selection of serious looks and lighter, happier looks. I think it's important that headshots should still have some personality in them.
Okay, relaxed. So basically, I'm going to take a few shots, and you are going to give me a few different expressions. You can do some serious ones, you can have some lighter ones, because I'm going to give you the camera, and you're going to choose which one you like the best. So you're just giving yourself choice, basically, at the end of the day. That's what you're doing. Okay, are you ready? Great, okay, great. That's good. Okay, so try it. Yeah, try it for you. That's lovely. Mouth closed, good. I let people choose their headshots. I don't choose for them. I used to kind of get home and take pride in picking the best shot and editing it up and sending it through, but I had them sent back too many times because people weren't happy with it, or they want to see all the rest to see if there was a better one because they don't trust it or don't like the way they look, and all the insecurities start coming up. And then you end up doing multiple edits on people. These aren't shots you're going to want in your portfolio. They're just headshots, and giving people the power to choose which shots they can take home actually makes them feel a lot more comfortable as well. So I'd encourage you, give them the choice. And there's a few ways you can do that. One way might be to tether. If the shoot is slower paced and I've got the space, I can bring a computer and set it up with Lightroom, tether straight into the computer, and then I can get them to sift through the shots afterwards on a nice big screen, and we can zoom in and make the selects right there, and I know exactly what I'm editing. Otherwise, sometimes I'll hand my camera over on a shoot if it's a smaller space and I need to move faster, and I get them to dial through. I'll take them to the first shot, and then I'll get them to dial through their shots to have a look, and I just encourage them, don't overthink this, just go with your gut. Which is the shot you want to take home? And when they make their select, that's the one I'm going to edit. And then they take a piece of paper, they'll write their full name on the piece of paper plus the number of the shot, and then they're going to hold it up sort of mugshot style, and the last shot I'll take is them holding with their full name and the number of the shot I'm going to edit. So in Lightroom it's really easy to see that's the one that I need to look for, and plus I can then label the files as well when I send them back with the person's full name as well, which is nice. The other way you could do it is to actually create contact sheets in Photoshop of all the shots you took and then send them to the company for them to send around and people can make their selects. But unfortunately the turnaround time on that is often huge, especially if you've shot 70 to 100 people in a day. To send something round so everyone can make a choice, you might be waiting for weeks. So I suggest finding the best way for you to do that, but I'd encourage you, let people choose the shot they want you to edit. So hopefully that's helped. This definitely isn't the only way to do it, but hopefully by me sharing some of the ways that I do things, you might have picked up some tips you can add to the way you do stuff, and hopefully it speeds things up. Remember, just keeping that balance between being really, really efficient on the day, but also being aware of quality, being able to just make little moves and adjustments that make a big difference, and it keeps the quality high the whole way through and the consistency up. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. If you need a new website or a domain, they really are a great option. I've used them for at least 6 or 7 years now. When I first started in headshot and portrait photography, the first thing I knew I needed to do was get a website up, and it had to have a gallery, had to have a contact page, it had to have an about page, it had to have a blog because I was writing a blog at the time, and that was quite intimidating. I thought it's going to be very expensive to hire someone to design that, but I checked Squarespace out. They had some very, very clean templates, really, really well designed, and it couldn't be easier to use. I'm no coding genius or anything like that, but I had a website up and running in 2 hours, and it helped me put my face out there as somebody who is doing this sort of work.
Start your free trial today at squarespace.com and go to squarespace.com/Sean Tucker to get 10% off your first purchase.